One of the most discussed topics regarding Baizhu is whether or not his arrival to the world of Genshin will be significant for Cyno, the Dendro-reliant on-field carry who has still room to grow. In fact, while Cyno is not lacking in team variants, his mains have been hoping to get new additions for his teams for a while now, as each of those compositions has specific flaws that situationally limit Cyno's performance compared to other characters, even on his same team concepts. The most notorious case is Alhaitham, a Dendro character who, just like Cyno, mainly fits on Quicken and Quickbloom based teams. While the two of them can perform similarly well in some situations, like some boss rooms, ultimately Alhaitham currently has objective advantages in multi-wave situations, which make him a more versatile pick. In particular, Cyno team's main flaw has always been not being able to maintain Dendro application in multi-wave scenarios, as Nahida's elemental skill needs to be reapplied every new wave, something Cyno just can't allow due to his long on-field rotation tied to his burst, which abruptly ends if he swaps out. For this reason, the addition of another Dendro unit to his team sounds like a logical next step for him, as it can potentially tackle the issue I just talked about. When it comes to Baizhu specifically, if you followed my previous videos about him, you probably already know that application-wise, he just can't even come close to an off-field Nahida, which already makes him unpractical in solo Dendro roles on teams where you need a lot of Dendro application. This is the case for Hyperbloom teams, and in Cyno's case specifically, all of his Quickbloom variants. In fact, pairing a characters like Baizhu with somebody like Yelan or Xinqiu, so the popular offensive Hydro options for Cyno teams, would reduce the Quicken uptime and the generation of blooms if compared to Nahida, while the Electrocharge uptime of the team would increase, which is exactly what you don't want with Cyno. So, the natural way to go for Baizhu and Cyno Quickbloom teams is alongside Nahida. Double Dendro teams are not an unexplored concept for Cyno, as people have already been pairing Nahida with Yaoyao or Dendro main character. There are some positives and negatives for this team concept, compared to a more traditional double Electro Quickbloom lineup. For the positives, having two sources of Dendro application will generally maximize Quicken uptime in the Hyperbloom generation if you have a non-field Electro, regardless of what Hydro is on the team. For example, characters like Constellation 2 Yelan and Constellation 6 Xinqiu can make Nahida's Dendro application slightly inconsistent and disrupt the Quicken uptime for a few instances. With a second Dendro on the team, this factor is diminished, and you still end up retaining the same blooms amount, if not more. Among the negatives, you need to invest for more energy recharge on Cyno compared to double Electro comps, and also use a Thundering Fury set on him to maximize his particle generation. Also, another thing I've noticed is that using somebody like Cookie with Elemental Mastery build on the team makes you trigger Hyperblooms more effectively in an AoE situation, while Cyno alone is not as consistent at it if you're fighting multiple enemies. The positives of the double Dendro lineups also sort of align with what Chaos teams go for. Specifically, the Quickbloom lineup with Thoma in the 4th slot aims at limiting the negative impact of Hydro application on leftovers, which make it harder to reapply Quicken on opponents. Moreover, Chaos teams have more front-loaded damage than other Cyno lineups, as the initial Pyro application from Thoma allows your Yelan or Xinqiu to vape some hits, which is a nice change of pace for a comp that deals most of the damage during the second half of the rotation. So, how does Baizhu stack up to all of these variants? From what I've calculated, double Dendro teams with Baizhu should perform the best in single target situations. For context, the Baizhu on the team is equipping Prototype Ember and the Clam artifact, which allows him to reach around 100,000 DPR. Other than that, Baizhu is also impacting Cyno's damage significantly through his reaction damage buffs, which are much more meaningful than things such as Thoma's Constellation 6. I've calculated both a Xinqiu and a Yelan variant for the team concept. the Shincho variant should produce around 4 more hyperblooms per rotation, at the expense of some Quicken uptime. This works better for Cyno if he is at low investment, while any sort of high investment form on the team, such as Cyno's signature, his Constellation 2, or even equipping Yelan with Energy of the End, gives the latter the edge if compared to Shincho. Also, a key advantage Baizhu has over all other Cyno Quickbloom comps is that he will be by far the best defensive option for him, as his healing capabilities surpass even the full extent of Yaoyao's healing, even though he doesn't require extended field time to achieve his full potential, unlike her. Basically, Baizhu double Dendro composition performed the best in terms of damage from a theory crafting perspective, while also being the safest to use, which is kind of a dream scenario for Cyno mains. Still, I believe Chaos and double Electro comps have some advantages over it, like potentially better performance in AoE and better front load. Also, while double Dendro should make things better for Cyno in multi-wave, this kind of advantage entirely depends on the context, and it's not easy to evaluate in a general way. Speaking about Baiju's build specifically, I've been testing him with Prototype Ember and Clem as I said, as that combination maximizes his own damage output and his HPs, which means his healing and buffing capabilities are also maximized. But, depending on the context, other options such as the Instructor Artifact set and the Hakushin Ring weapon might also be similarly valuable. It's worth noting that you can only activate both of these options effects while the holder is on field, and on rotations I've calculated for Cyno Quickbloom, Baizhu just doesn't take the field enough times for them to have a significant impact. Lastly, I want to touch another aspect of Baizhu and Cyno's synergy, namely the potential improvements their combination opens up for Quicken teams. In a past Cyno video I made, I already explained why Cyno aggravate teams being weak in all cases is a misconception. In fact, there is a specific rotation with Kazuha and Fischl that maximizes the uptime of Kazuha's buffs and odds attacks, and makes the rotation damage look quite good as a result. The issue with that composition, however, is that it lacks defensive options, so it's extremely fragile. Replacing Nahida with Baizhu could solve the issue, while this swap has significantly negative offensive repercussions, as Baizhu just can't match Nahida's damage output, AoE application, and buffing capabilities for Cyno. The addition of his massive healing capabilities might very well be the difference between this comp being unplayable and playable for many. In fact, at least in single target scenarios, this composition surpasses most of the other Quicken variants for Cyno, and it's only beaten by the Nahida variant I just talked about. To contextualize the strength of this comp better, I'd say the damage per rotation it manages to reach at free-to-play investment is quite decent. And if you combine this feat with the utility Kazuha and Baizhu bring to the team, I would say this Quicken variant could seriously impress people that think Cyno is just unusable outside of Hyperbloom teams. Overall, Baizhu is a positive addition for Cyno teams. His double Dendro lineups not only surpass all other double Dendro Quickbloom teams for Cyno, but they also rank at the very top between the teams I've calculated, which are also some of the strongest Cyno teams in general based on my knowledge. Still, I wouldn't say this double Dendro lineup will become the clear-cut best in all real game scenarios, for the reasons I've explained in this video. Other than that, since Baizhu also improves the situation for Quicken Cyno teams, I'd say he will be a nice addition for the Cyno players out there. I'm done for today. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. See you next time!